Today, I thought that I'd show you something that I learned on my own when I was young, simply because I didn't own a pick. Now, you have to remember I'm old, so I'm showing you something that I kind of figured out because I had to, because I wanted to be able to keep up with the beat I was hearing on the radio, but because I didn't have a pick, and the most I had was cigarette cover, or not cigarette cover, but matches around the house, because my parents smoked. What a terrible thing. But they smoked, and so there were match covers everywhere, so I could use those. So, you know, I did learn how to use a pick, and I'm not telling you that you shouldn't learn how to use a pick, because you should, because there's things you can do with a pick that you won't be able to do with what I'm going to show you. But then there's things you can do with what I'm going to show you that you can't do with a pick. At least I don't think. But anyways, I just think it's a different sound, a different style. So I didn't have a pick, and I wanted to be able to strum. So I'm going to try to stay simple here with this. But I wanted to strum, so what I figured out was that I could strum with my fingers. Now, everybody always pretend they had a pick and would do this. I didn't like it because it felt awkward, and I felt like I was tangling in the strings. It just didn't feel smooth to me. I mean, you can do that, but it just feels, unless you're hitting the strings at a certain angle, it's not smooth. You feel like you're getting caught in the strings. So I figured out if I use these two fingers, not these three, but these two, the middle finger and the ring finger, I could do the downstroke, not necessarily with all 6 strings at a time, but you could do that, but just with maybe 3 to 4 strings at a time. So you would actually focus on a location of the strings. I guess that's what I'm going to say. So in this case, I'm focusing just the top 3 strings. Occasionally I'm picking up a 4th string. And I'm doing a downstroke with just these 2 fingers. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you see that? Let me bring this like this. See? Now there's some things you're going to notice here. First of all, I'm not doing this. If you don't do that even with a pick. You shouldn't be. If you're doing this with a pick, you need to reevaluate, because that's just going to wear you out. Okay, with a pick, even with a pick, you want most of your work to be happening with your wrist and with your hands when you're picking. And with this style, it's the same thing. You want most of the work to be right up in here and with your fingers. Think about it. I mean, if I tell you to drum out, just tap out a rhythm, right? Now you notice I'm tapping. I'm not doing this. I couldn't get what I wanted by doing this, but if I do this, where all the work is happening here, it's much more natural. You notice I don't have this part moving. It's all in here. It's all in the wrist. And it's the same thing when you're picking. It's all up here in the wrist, and then the fingers, or when you're strumming. So when you're using your pick, try to stay specific to certain areas when you start. Just do a few strings at a time. Down, 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 down. Do something. And you can do all the strings. Even then, you don't see my arm swinging. It's just mostly happening up in here. The wider I get with the strings, the more I have to give a little more up here. But for the most part, the work is in here. And it takes some time because you don't want to be stiff. You don't want to say, oh, I can't move my arm, so now I'm just doing this. You've got to relax. But most of the work is going to be up in here. Once you figure out, shake your hands out a little bit. Once you figure out that this is where the work's going to be, try tapping a little bit. That's how it's going to be. You're not moving your arm, okay? All right, so you're doing this. So that being said, let's back up because the whole purpose is to show you this. How do I do that, okay? So I didn't have a pick, so what I had to figure out was how to do this, and I suppose it came natural. Now, on this side of my life, I realize that what that is, I'm going to move this up so I feel like I'm looking at myself. What that is similar to how they play the banjo. It's called a claw. It's sort of the same. They do the same thing, except from what I understand, they usually use these 3 fingers, all 3 of them, to strike the strings. And then they use their thumb to pick up the bass notes, right? Well, what I'm doing is I'm using these 2 fingers. I'm freeing this up for a reason, because sometimes I'll use it to pinch, and I'll make my upbeat with this finger and pinch it with the bass note. Hear that? See, I'm playing several notes, several strings. But I'm not going to show you that right yet, but that's the reason why I free up this finger. So I'm just using these fingers, and then I use my thumb for the upstroke. And you'll notice I'm staying in a certain location on the strings. If you want to get the low string, try to stick to like 4 strings at a time. You can do them all, but I'm telling you, it sounds better to me, it's cleaner. Fingers just free. Okay. That's why. So if you teach yourself to do the strum just between the thumb and the finger and keep this free, it'll be ready when you're ready to move on to other things. Because you could use that finger, those 2 fingers, and throw in an occasional downstroke there. You can go back and forth in between finger style, strumming. But it's best, you got to start someplace. So where do you start? Start with the down, up, down. Start with that. Get used to doing that. Then try it on the low strings. And then pick a location. Only stick with like 3 or 4 strings at a time. I'm over the sound hole. If you do it back here, to me, you can do that, but it gives a different sound. You can even play up here, but it gives a different sound. It's not as full. I think you get more out of just being over the sound hole. Try it just, as you're playing along. But again, let me just bring it real close so you can see it. These 2 fingers, down, thumb up. My fingers are doing most of the work here because I'm staying located in one area. I'm not trying to pick up all the strings right yet. I'm moving up here to pick up those spaces. And there, right there is why I like to use this finger, keep it free. So I'm using this to create an upstroke. Anyways, I don't want to get into that, but I'm just showing you just different ways that if you can learn this right, then you free up your fingers to do other styles. And again, it's just those two fingers that are creating that downstroke. But I think just start with this. You know, put on some music, something was simple that you know the chords to, and try it. Try to keep up with the beat. That's just simply using these two fingers and the thumb, and they're going back and forth between the two. Okay? All right, well, I hope I didn't confuse you with that. I tried to explain. So there you have it. I don't know what I call it, but it's kind of like the claw style. It's just something that I came up with and maybe it's replicated someplace. Maybe there's somebody's looking at this thinking, oh, that's the... But the only reason why I know it is because it was something I had to do because I didn't have a pick. All right. I hope you all have a great day out there, and thanks for listening in.